Commissioner Gordon, Bane has escaped.
The modern mind is rarely silent. It is constantly scrolling, consuming, reacting. 4.5 hours a day disappear into glowing rectangles, each moment of attention auctioned to the highest bidder. People say they are bored, but what they really mean is that they can no longer stand being alone with their own thoughts. They've been trained to outsource thinking to the crowd, to let the internet finish their sentences, form their opinions, and define their desires. When silence arrives, panic follows, because silence demands self-confrontation. It strips away distraction and leaves you face to face with yourself. That is where the real work begins. Solitude is not empty, it is full. It is where the noise fades and the real voice beneath begins to speak. The problem is not that people have lost intelligence. It is that they have lost intimacy with their own mind. Every scroll fractures the mind further. The brain adapts to stimulation like a drug. It needs more, faster, louder. Dopamine becomes the leash of modern slavery. Each swipe trains your nervous system to chase novelty, not meaning. It rewires the circuits meant for focus and depth into craving loops of endless refresh. You start mistaking motion for progress, exposure for importance. The mind no longer reflects, it reacts. The world's noise begins living inside you. Even in quiet rooms, the residue of constant scrolling echoes through your thoughts. The ability to be still decays. Solitude becomes uncomfortable because it lacks validation. Yet silence is the only environment where original thought can form. Creativity cannot breathe in constant comparison. When silence feels unnatural, you've forgotten what it means to think independently. You've been conditioned to treat stimulation as survival. The moment your screen goes dark, the illusion of connection breaks, and you're left with raw consciousness. No filters, no algorithms, just you. Most people avoid that encounter because it exposes how much of their identity is borrowed. Every meme, every opinion, every outrage they echo comes from somewhere else. Their mind is not a creation. It's a compilation. That's why solitude feels like suffocation. It removes the borrowed air of other voices, but only in that oxygen deprivation do you find your original breath again. The average person does not fear solitude. They fear what solitude reveals. When you stop scrolling, you start remembering. The unfinished dreams, the ignored emotions, the real questions about who you've become. They all rise to the surface. The mind resists it because awareness threatens comfort. But growth begins exactly there, in that uneasy silence where you start hearing the truth. You realize most of what you chase are distractions designed to protect you from stillness. The mind craves noise because noise delays clarity. But clarity is the only thing that can save you from drifting into oblivion disguised as engagement. Silence is not emptiness, it's maintenance. It's how you defragment the soul. The irony of social media is that it makes you feel connected while disconnecting you from yourself. You scroll to feel alive but end up hollow. Each post delivers a tiny spike of emotion, joy, envy, outrage, but none of it lasts. It's emotional junk food, engineered to keep you hungry. You start mistaking interaction for intimacy, likes for love, content for creation. Solitude becomes unbearable because it offers no applause. But applause is meaningless if it costs your individuality. In solitude, you rediscover what it means to exist without performance. You remember that life happens in moments, not metrics. The more time you spend away from noise, the more you start hearing the real pulse of your mind, the one that has been whispering under the static all along. The brain was not built for constant input. It was designed for rhythm, absorption, reflection, integration. When you eliminate reflection, thought becomes shallow. You collect knowledge but never wisdom. You scroll through philosophy, art, and ideas, mistaking exposure for understanding. But understanding only comes through contemplation. That requires silence. Silence is the soil where ideas root themselves. Without it, nothing grows, everything just passes by. If you want to think deeply, you must be willing to disconnect. Solitude is the mental fast that detoxifies the intellect. It cleanses you from the influence of other people's urgency. The quiet mind becomes dangerous because it starts generating its own truth. Solitude is not isolation, it is incubation. The greatest thinkers, artists, and innovators all had one thing in common: they withdrew. They understood that true originality requires space. In a world drowning in recycled thoughts, solitude becomes rebellion. When you remove yourself from constant input, your brain begins to repair its ability to create. At first, it feels disorienting. Your attention shakes like an addict deprived of its fix. But soon, the noise inside begins to fade. Patterns form, ideas surface, clarity returns. You begin to download yourself again, not the version society wants, but the one that exists beneath the programming. That process is slow, painful, and sacred. People chase relevance while abandoning reflection. They measure worth through visibility, forgetting that visibility means nothing if you've lost your voice. The algorithm rewards outrage, not understanding. It values frequency over quality, performance over authenticity. That is why silence feels like death to the average person. It cannot be measured, it cannot be shared. But silence is where your spirit recalibrates. It's where you start distinguishing between noise and signal. When you sit alone long enough, you stop chasing the world's rhythm and start creating your own. That rhythm is what makes your life yours again. The greatest danger of constant stimulation is the illusion of awareness. You think you are informed, connected, evolving, but in truth, you are distracted. The mind becomes a mirror reflecting everything but itself. You lose contact with your inner witness. The only way to restore that connection is to remove external noise long enough to hear your own frequency again. Solitude gives you access to that signal. It's where you stop reacting to the world and start interpreting it. The thoughts that surface in silence are not new. They've been buried under layers of noise, waiting for you to return. The more time you spend in solitude, the clearer they become. Your mind is not an infinite space. It is a finite battlefield where only a handful of thoughts can survive at once. The prefrontal cortex, the control room of focus, can hold roughly 7 ideas before it begins to collapse under the weight of noise. Every new distraction forces something meaningful out. You don't lose focus because you are incapable. You lose it because the world keeps hijacking those 7 precious seats with irrelevant noise. One notification, one scroll, one meaningless thought, and suddenly, the concept that could have changed your life vanishes into static. Alone time becomes the only sanctuary where you can reclaim ownership of those limited slots. Solitude is the firewall of consciousness. It protects your most important thoughts from being overwritten by the chaos of the modern world. Each distraction doesn't just interrupt your attention, it replaces it. It steals mental real estate and fills it with nonsense. That is how you lose track of who you are. Your deepest ambitions begin as quiet ideas, fragile and small, easily drowned out by the noise of convenience. You check your phone, you switch tabs, you react, and in that split second, something important is pushed out. The idea that could have been the seed of transformation is gone, replaced by digital trivia. This is how lives drift. It's not dramatic, it's gradual. Every distraction is a theft so small it goes unnoticed, yet cumulative enough to empty you over time. The modern mind is not suffering from lack of information. It's suffering from abundance without filtration. Solitude is not just peace, it's precision. It allows you to filter the essential from the irrelevant. When you disconnect, you can finally hear the thoughts that belong to you. The mind becomes like a quiet room where echoes settle and truth stands clear. The absence of noise does not create emptiness, it creates visibility. You start noticing what ideas keep returning even after silence stretches long. Those are the ones worth building your life around. The rest, the fleeting impulses, the external noise dissolve. Alone time sharpens perception. It's how you differentiate between what's urgent and what's important. The average person can no longer tell the difference because their attention has been rented out to every notification that flashes. The prefrontal cortex is fragile. It fatigues easily. It was designed for problem solving, not for constant stimulation. Every unnecessary decision you make burns energy meant for creation. Every distraction you indulge drains focus reserved for direction. Solitude restores that balance. When you give your mind space, its clarity returns. Thoughts begin to link instead of collide. Creativity emerges not from chaos, but from the calm between interruptions. The quiet mind is a productive one, not because it works harder, but because it finally has room to think. Silence is not laziness. It's cognitive recovery. It's how the mind resets its bandwidth for what truly matters. You live in an age that sells fragmentation as multitasking. People brag about juggling ideas, unaware that the brain can barely hold 7 at once. Splitting focus doesn't multiply capacity, it dilutes it. Every half thought is a dead end, every partial focus a missed insight. Solitude teaches you to respect the limitation of your own biology. It reminds you that you cannot think deeply about many things at once. You can only think deeply about one thing that matters. The world teaches speed, solitude teaches depth. Depth is where transformation happens. Speed only guarantees exhaustion. The mind you quiet becomes the mind that finally sees. When you isolate yourself from noise, time slows down. The clutter of constant input fades, and suddenly your thoughts become distinct again. You begin to feel the difference between borrowed ideas and original ones. Most people never reach that point because they confuse silence for stagnation. They crave stimulation, unaware that their craving is their cage. The truth is, solitude doesn't limit your world, it expands it. It removes the fog created by overexposure. Your ideas breathe, your mind organizes itself, and for the first time in years, you feel the weight of clarity return. Solitude doesn't give answers, it gives you enough space to ask real questions. Every distraction is a form of obedience, to algorithms, to noise, to the pull of other people's urgency. Solitude is rebellion. It is the refusal to let your limited cognitive bandwidth be spent on what does not serve you. You don't need to manage more. You need to remove more. When you do, focus becomes effortless. The brain, freed from constant interference, starts functioning as designed. Ideas connect, intuition strengthens, and awareness expands. You start realizing how much power you've been giving away just by reacting. Reclaiming that power starts with a single act, doing nothing, sitting in silence long enough for your mind to stop chasing distraction and start settling into observation. The mind that constantly consumes cannot create. You cannot build anything lasting if your internal space is always occupied. Solitude empties the room so that creation can enter. Each quiet hour repairs the damage of scattered attention. Every moment without noise teaches you to listen again, to your thoughts, your intuition, your instincts. This is not isolation, it's recalibration. You start operating from consciousness instead of compulsion. The average person moves like a puppet of impulses, mistaking activity for purpose. The rare few who master stillness move deliberately. They create with focus. They build with intention. They live with presence. Your prefrontal cortex can hold 7 ideas in working memory. That means your future depends on what fills those 7. Will it be distractions or designs, opinions or strategies, noise or clarity? Every time you let the world dictate what occupies your mind, you trade awareness for comfort. Alone time is not luxury, it's necessity. It's how you take back control of what you think about. It's how you decide which thoughts deserve to stay. It's how you separate signal from static. Growth has never been a gentle process. The body understands this truth better than the mind does. A weightlifter tears muscle fibers to rebuild them thicker, stronger, and more capable of handling resistance. The mind follows the same law. Solitude stretches the psyche until it breaks in places you never realized were fragile. Each confrontation with silence tears through the illusions that protect your comfort. The pain you feel in those moments is not punishment. It is progress. Thought grows through resistance, not agreement. Solitude provides the perfect weight. It presses down with questions no one can answer for you. It pulls apart the layers of who you think you are, and in that tearing, something new forms, something that can carry more. Alone is not absence, it is the gym of the soul. In company, the mind lifts light weights. You mirror, agree, and conform. You stay within the boundaries of the acceptable, never venturing into the wilderness of self-examination. Alone, there is no one left to imitate, no audience to perform for. You must lift the full weight of your thoughts without support. That strain is what builds psychological muscle. The discomfort that solitude brings is the tension your identity needs to evolve. The same way physical growth demands time under tension, mental growth demands time under silence. You learn not by escaping the discomfort, but by enduring it long enough to understand it. The more you resist that friction, the softer you remain. The more you embrace it, the more defined you become. Solitude introduces conflict because the mind is forced to face its own contradictions. It's easy to maintain confidence when surrounded by noise that agrees with you. But alone, the voices in your head begin to argue. The part of you that wants comfort wrestles with the part that craves greatness. The side that seeks pleasure clashes with the one that seeks purpose. This is not dysfunction, it's dialogue. The clash is the sound of growth. Without it, you remain a static version of yourself. Each internal argument refines your beliefs, trims away falsehoods, and sculpts conviction. The mind that avoids solitude avoids confrontation, and the mind that avoids confrontation stays untrained. The body adapts when exposed to challenge. The mind does the same. Solitude is your mental resistance training. Every quiet hour is a repetition, each unanswered thought another rep under invisible weight. Most people stop when the silence starts to hurt, but that's where growth begins. The burn you feel is clarity forming. It's the shedding of illusions. It's your mind building endurance against distraction and fear. Alone, you can feel the weight of your thoughts pressing down, but the more you sit with it, the lighter it becomes. Not because it disappears, but because you become capable of holding it. That capability is what separates those who crumble under life from those who carry it with grace. When lifters train, they chase failure because they know that's where strength is forged. Thinkers must do the same. You must be willing to think until your mind aches, to question your own beliefs until they bleed. Every truth you uncover will cost you a piece of comfort, but it will buy you a piece of freedom. Most people stop short of real thinking because it hurts to dismantle themselves. They mistake pain for danger, never realizing its adaptation. Each moment of doubt, each wave of solitude-induced discomfort is your mind breaking its limits. It's not suffering, it's shaping. The only way to think clearly is to think painfully first. Alone, There's no distraction to soften the impact of reality. You feel every ounce of your confusion, your fear, your uncertainty. It's raw, it's heavy. But in that heaviness, you discover depth. You learn that mental endurance grows from facing yourself, not avoiding yourself. Just like a muscle grows only after recovery, your mind reorganizes itself after struggle. Solitude is that recovery period. It's where ideas heal into understanding and doubts crystallize into truth. Those who fear solitude fear their own potential. They want the reward without the resistance. But resistance is the requirement. Without the strain of self-confrontation, you remain mentally unconditioned. Growth never happens in comfort. The weightlifter knows that easy reps mean no progress. The same applies to thought. Easy conversations, easy ideas, easy days, they build nothing. Only the heavy lifting of solitude transforms you. Every hard truth you face alone adds mass to your mental frame. You learn to hold complexity without collapsing. You learn to balance contradiction without panic. You learn to carry uncertainty without rushing to numb it. That stability is rare because it requires pain first. Those who build it become immovable, not because they avoid struggle, but because they trained with it. Solitude is the silent gym where mental resilience is sculpted rep by rep. Friction is the birthplace of clarity. In solitude, friction takes the form of silence. It presses against the restless mind until the noise burns away. What's left is pure focus, an understanding that doesn't depend on validation. The thoughts that survive solitude are the thoughts worth keeping. Everything else dissolves. The more time you spend alone, the sharper your perception becomes. You begin to see the difference between real insight and recycled noise. Solitude filters truth from imitation. It separates who you are from who you perform as. In a world obsessed with display, solitude teaches authenticity. Alone is where identity lifts heavier. It's where the self stops relying on the spotter of external approval. The silence is the weight, the doubt is the strain, and clarity is the reward. You do not build identity through agreement, you build it through confrontation. Every moment you endure alone adds density to your sense of self. When you return to the world, you move differently, calmer, surer, unshakable. Others chase validation because they never trained to stand without it. You will have. And once you've learned to carry the full weight of your own mind, the opinions of others feel lighter than air. Mirrors shape behavior. Every time you see your reflection, physical or digital, you are reminded that you're being watched, even if only by yourself. That awareness triggers performance. You start fixing your expression, adjusting your stance, editing your words. The same happens socially. The moment others are present, you begin to perform for their perception. Every sentence bends toward approval. Every gesture becomes filtered. Remove those mirrors and suddenly, there is nothing left to impress. The absence of reflection strips away the show. What remains is raw, unedited, honest self-awareness. Alone, you cannot pretend. You see yourself not as you appear, but as you are. The silence doesn't judge, it reveals. Without mirrors, you meet the unflattering parts that others never notice, and the rare strength that you never needed to prove. Performance is seductive because it provides feedback. Approval feels like proof of existence. But when you spend too much time reflected, you begin to mistake performance for identity. You start thinking you are only real when observed. That illusion kills authenticity. The crowd becomes your mirror, and every action becomes choreography designed for validation. Remove the mirrors, and your movements lose the need for applause. You start acting out of alignment instead of expectation. It feels disorienting at first, like walking blind, but that blindness is freedom. It forces you to rely on inner coordinates instead of external ones. You no longer look for signs of who you are. You feel it directly. The digital age has made every surface reflective. Every post, every comment, every glance at a screen becomes a subtle performance. People curate even their silence. Reflection has become addiction. But self-awareness and self-display are opposites. True awareness requires disappearance. When you stop seeking reflection, you start observing reality as it is, not through filters, but through raw perception. The absence of mirrors creates space for introspection. In that space, the mind stops rehearsing and starts remembering. You recall what you value, what you fear, what you've ignored. Without reflection, truth walks in quietly. Mirrors multiply noise. They split focus between how you appear and who you are. That division drains energy. You begin living for impressions, not for impact. The mind grows anxious, always checking how it's perceived. But when the mirrors are gone, attention collapses inward. The mind begins to function as one unit again. Every action becomes rooted in intention rather than reaction. That unity feels unfamiliar because most people have never experienced it. They are fractured by reflection, half actor, half witness. Alone, that fracture heals. You stop watching yourself live and finally start living. When you remove mirrors, you discover how much of your personality was performance. The jokes, the tone, the posture, all habits built for response. Alone, those habits dissolve. You realize that confidence doesn't come from being seen. It comes from not needing to be. The absence of an audience exposes how much of your worth depends on applause. It's a painful revelation. But pain is the price of truth. When there's no mirror to perform for, your actions begin to reflect something deeper.